Okay, Claire, you wrote an article in the Sunday Telegraph and it was called Underbelly, Raises Myth, Hides the Ugly Truth. Can you just give me a bit of a background on that article?
Sure. I am a columnist at the Sunday Telegraph and I write about something different every week. This particular week, the big story in the news, there were two big stories in the news. One was the case of Craig Thompson, a Labor MP, who as a union official was involved in a controversy where someone had used his credit card for expenses including visits to brothels. The other thing that was in the news at the time was the television series Underbelly Razor, which was portraying prostitution in this part of Sydney, actually, in the 1920s and 30s, as a very glamorous kind of business. So, in thinking about what I would write about that week, I thought the two of them had a natural fit. Craig Thompson's story was reported in most of the papers, and particularly I noticed in editorial cartoons, as a kind of slightly saucy, exciting, sexy story of a naughty person visiting prostitutes and having a great time. There was a similar portrayal of prostitution in Underbelly. I felt that it was a sexy, saucy, naughty kind of thing to do. And I just felt that one element of prostitution which no one had focused on was that it's pretty tough for most of the women I've ever met who've been involved in prostitution, and men. It's been a really tough life. It's not been a great deal of fun, and although I would never suggest that prostitution should be illegal or that it should be criminalised or that prostitutes should be persecuted, I really feel for them. I feel that it's an exploitative business where the women generally are the victims.
Mm-hmm. And tell me about some of because you've been a journalist for how many years?
About 17.
17 years, so you would have interviewed a number of sex workers.
Yeah, I started work as a cadet in the Australians Canberra Bureau, actually, so I was often doing stories that related to Canberra's sex industry, and then as now the sex industry is a vocal force in federal politics. They've got an active interest in lobbying and appearing at committees and so on, so I was regularly doing stories about regulatory issues and legislation. Over the years I've worked in various places, including in Asia, where I've done stories about Asian.
I think that's two ways. They're not portrayed in the middle. They're either portrayed as very glamorous on one end, or at the other end as really kind of low life, if you like. Yeah, it depends on the particular production.
Yeah. Have you seen the Underbelly Razor series? No.
No, sorry.
To be honest, just with my life, I don't like in magazines, newspapers, even on news and television. To be honest, I don't reckon they get portrayed much at all. I don't really see
get advertised or anything like that. It's
not
promoted.
Yeah, not really. It's a lot just hidden away from a lot. Maybe other people I'm not into the media that much, so I don't look at it that much and stuff. But when I do look and stuff, I don't think it really gets portrayed to me. That's why I don't really know that much about it.
Okay, well,
movies and stuff to how they probably are in real life.
Yeah. And is this because you've seen the Underbelly Razor series?
Yes, I've seen a bit of that.
Okay, and what did you like about the series?
The prostitutes.
Okay, that's mostly I hear, or what I think really is not to be mean, but dirty kind of people. I'm sure they don't mean to be it, but I guess that's the only way they can survive, I guess. Because of their job and what they do exactly. Yeah. Okay. Hello, I'm now here with Joanne. How are you going, Joanne?
Good, thank you.
How's your evening been?
Fantastic.
Has it?
Yeah, it's been a great enlightening evening.
Oh, that's great. Okay, I've got some questions for you. Are you happy to answer them?
Yes, Fanny, I am.
So how are prostitutes portrayed in the media?
Oh look, I think they're portrayed in an overly glamorous way, and it's almost like it's a recruitment drive for working girls, as though there's, you know, a lot of money to be made, and that they're going to meet up with all these interesting men, and you know, to me, it's totally fabricated. It's a facade.
Yeah.
I've seen it on the current affair a couple of times, but I see it as like women putting themselves out, their body out, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah. You see it. Fuck me. Sorry. Fuck her. She's ready for the industry, everyone. Sorry. Yeah, it's either like what the other said is glamorized, kind of they're happy with what they do, or it's they're like the opposite end where they're like single moms and they're really like they get beat up, kind of like abused and so forth. Yeah.
The murky world of Sydney crime is the subject of a new exhibition at the Justice and Police Museum. It looks back at King's Cross in the days before neon signs and sex shops. And as Peter Harvey explains, back then it wasn't the men who ran the streets.
1 square mile of vice and violence, but it wasn't always like that. In the beginning, it was high class and genteel. Luxurious mansions around the harbour foreshore, homes for Sydney's rich and powerful. Times quickly changed. Slums began crawling up the hills. By the early years of last century, King's Cross was Sydney's underbelly, and behind its glossy neon face, still is.
Those who own the Cross control the game that's acted out in Underbelly. But let's go back a few years, a bit further, to the 1920s and 1930s, when the razor gangs tormented the streets and controlled all aspects of illegal business.
Pistols were suddenly outlawed, so the gangs switched to the long, lethal, cutthroat razors. Vicious and feared, they were to do far more damage than the guns. While King's Cross is definitely a man's world now, back then it was monopolised by 2 very powerful women. Tilly Devine ran a vice empire, streetwalkers and brothels. Kate Lee was queen of the illegal booze industry and the cocaine trade.
Tilly and Kate surrounded themselves with ferocious henchmen, you know, some very, very bad customers of the day.
A government crackdown on vice backfired big time. The law said no man could run a brothel.
Tilly Devine took note of that and thought, well, I'm not a man. You can't stop me, and that's what she did, and she became a criminal entrepreneur running brothels that left her one of Sydney's wealthiest women.
Judge says Kate Lee must be the worst woman in Sydney. No mention.
They obviously have to do it for certain reasons, to maybe keep themselves going, but then there could be people that, I don't know, they might enjoy it, but yeah, I don't know,
Brothels, a very sad world of people that are hurting, and not just the woman or man, but the client as well. Like everyone, I guess, is hurting.
And do you think
what comes to mind?
Girls, women on the streets, just putting their body out for you.
Not for me.
For,
me.
for people.
People, yeah. Thank you. And do you?
Most definitely. I think there's a really strong relationship between pornography, the porn industry, the underbelly mafia, also the bikie gangs. I think they're all intertwined and interconnected. Now, I actually think there's a really strong political agenda amongst the pro-sex groups, which is actually really, really scary because they're getting a lot more airplay, and they've got a really strong political voice. If you can believe that there's a sex party and that they they actually get quite a few votes at election time. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Joanne. I've really spoken about. Just touch your breasts then. I'm sorry.
Is it part of the underworld? Yeah, because it's like something that people most likely like to slip. Like say that again. It's something people most likely like to sweep under the rug. Like no one really wants to talk about it. I mean, no one is proud really to say that they go to it. So I suppose
It's always
it
just
is,
hidden and
a very big part of the underside of society.
Okay. Well,
Yes.
okay, thank you, Jared, for that. That's all.
Beautiful.
Do you think prostitution is a part of the underbelly?
Never seen Underbelly before.
No, like as in the
Underworld.
like the underworld, like the mafia, like it's not talked about, but it is. Like, do you think it's a major part of it?
Yeah, I guess. Well, that's the thing. Like, it is an underworld to me because I don't really know much about it at all, and I don't really see much about it. But like you do see it sometimes. Like where we are now. Like I know where they are locally, and like some towns I've been to. Like it's there. You know it's there, and you get like people know and they tell you, but they keep it pretty hidden. And yeah, so I guess the answer to the question is yeah.
Okay. Thank you for.
Judge says Kate Lee must be the worst woman in Sydney. No mention of Tilly Devine.
What, you want to be the worst woman in Sydney, do you?
I want to be recognised for what I am.
Welcome to the 1920s.
I'm the man who's going to take down Kate Lee and Tilly Devine, and you're going to help me.
The true story of our first bloody war.
He's going to go.
Underbelly Razor starts now.